Hello, my beautiful people. How are we doing today? I think this might be uploaded on Monday, so I think it's going to be a happy Monday, everybody. This is also my first time using my little mic, so I'm hoping you can all hear me well. If not, I'm going to have to see what I can do about that. Yeah. Okay, well, it's the 1st of February that I'm filming this, and in the last 3 or so, that's a lie, I told you straight off the bat. Oh my goodness, guys, I'm so sorry. In the last 6 or so months, I have really discovered my love for learning about the brain, understanding the neuroscience behind why we do what we do. I am not a neuroscience student, however, I am studying my master's in social work, and I love studying science, the brain, habits, routines, understanding the in-depths of our minds in my spare time. So today, I figured, because this month I am doing February, where I'm learning about self-trust and how I can build my own self-trust and have more confidence in myself, which is all about sticking to my goals and getting my own confidence. So I figured, what better way than to understand why goals are so hard to get? Like, why are goals so hard to achieve? Why is it that some people achieve goals so easy, others it's so difficult for them? I'm in the other category. I set a goal, and you best believe it takes me forever to actually achieve it, or I don't have the confidence in myself that I can achieve it. That is changing, however. This year, that is going to change. So we are going to talk about why are goals so difficult to set, and then possibly how are we going to change it so we can set them. First up, setting goals is actually the easy part. Everyone can set a goal, right? Whether that be we want to be healthier, more successful, more disciplined. Me, I'm one of those. More confident. Some people even have the goal of being more happy. And you know what? Nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. Everybody should strive to be happy in their life. So setting goals is actually easy. Achieving them, that is the hard part. That is where most people struggle. Because really, achieving goals is a completely different story. So why are they so difficult to achieve? Well, when you look at it this way, goals are a desire to achieve a different outcome. When you want to achieve a different outcome, you have to do something different than what you're doing. You have to change your behavior. And that's not easy. It's not. Because if it was, everyone would be doing it. Everyone would be achieving goals left, right, front, and center. So for us to change our behavior, we need to change our habits. Really, to achieve a goal, you have to change your behaviors, which means changing your habits. And that is ultimately why it becomes so difficult. Old habits are comfortable. New habits are hard. Old habits that are familiar, that automatic, they're your default. And to change that default takes time and energy. And that is where a lot of people begin to fall off. Not a lot of people are willing to stick to the uncomfortable. New habits are uncomfortable. They're not in your default mode. A lot of times they don't come easy, they don't feel natural, they can even feel very uncertain, especially at the beginning. We have some serious chats, so I better sit up for this. When we hear people say that they lack motivation, it's usually not the real issue. Sometimes it can be a very valid reasoning, but often one of the big reasons is resistance. And trust me, I know firsthand, I'm one of those people. There's a lot of resistance around creating new habits because it's not familiar. It isn't. Resistance is discomfort. Resistance is uncertain. Resistance is not immediately getting reward. A lot of the times we underestimate how powerful our existing habits are. A lot of the time, our habits have been around for years. They're ingrained in us. So when we try to introduce new ones, we're not just adding something else in, we're fighting what has been with us for many, many years or months, depending on what habit it is, but ones that have been very easily stuck around, which means us ourselves struggle to get our goals into fruition because our old habits are creating resistance for these new habits to come in, which then allow our goal to create momentum and continue forward. Because that little phase between having the goal, changing the habit, to then reaching the goal, this phase is a tough part. So what is the real definition of a goal? It's really something people never think about. It's simply a desired outcome that you wouldn't be able to achieve if not for a barrier to get there. Because then it wouldn't really be a goal, would it? If you can easily get it, it isn't so much a goal. There has to be that barrier that you have to overcome for it to become a goal. You could, I guess, look at it as like a detour from the path of least resistance, obviously with that path being comfort. So by the definition of a goal, it requires discomfort, because if it didn't, it wouldn't be a goal. And you would essentially already have the result. There are things we want, but we have difficulty achieving. This even happens though when we logically know that's possible, but there's just that barrier that stops us, which is where the studying of the brain comes in, because essentially it's our brain that doesn't want us, or our brain that has the habits in the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala that's preventing us from doing our desired outcomes. Where I used to get stuck a lot was I used to think a lot about my goals, but the action I never took. That's changing this year though. It's changing. I'm putting actions in place to reach the goals I want, because a lot of it comes down to action, which again is habits. Gap between knowing and doing. But still, knowing all of this, knowing that habits are what get us to where we want to be, knowing that goals are an outcome that require the changes of habits and routines, knowing that the way to do it is by putting thoughts into action, we still fall off. And we're all guilty of it at some point. Why do we fall back into our old patterns? Part of it can come down to the lack of clarity we have around these goals. If you're not crystal clear on what you want, the actions it takes you to get there become unclear, which then leads you to not really knowing how you're going to get to where you need to be. Vague goals create vague action. But also included in all that is having two broader goals. I want to be successful. Successful in what? Business, life, family, work. We need to get crystal clear. And I'm doing this as well. I've done this. I've broken down all my goals to the itsy bitsy little teeny weeny bits. And then I've re-engineered it back as to why I wasn't achieving what I've always wanted to achieve. When you become unsure of what you want, every decision can feel exhausting, uncertain. You don't know if it's going to get you to where you want to be. And when these thoughts comes up of feeling exhausted with the decisions we have to make, uncertain, we go back to our default mode, our old habits, because the human brain likes what's familiar. Another reason is identity conflict. Something we haven't discussed yet is the idea that to have something new, you have to change the identity, show up as the thing that you want. So if I want to reach a outcome, a goal, but I'm still operating in my old identity, there's a disconnect there. If I want to be someone that wakes up at 5 a.m., takes my little puppy for a walk, comes back, has my greens, writes in my journal and heads to work, I want to be that solid morning routine person, get it out of the way, but I'm living in the reality of me in my old identity, being someone that wakes up at 5, has a coffee, watches YouTube, says I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. I'm not showing up as a person that already has these goals, has already achieved them. Instead, I'm showing up as someone that's inconsistent, which won't match. You need to show up as a person that has the goals already, which is part of the action phase. Your behavior must always stay aligned with who you believe you are. Not who you are, who you believe you are. Because who you believe you are will eventually become who you are. Neuroscience. And also your environment. Your environment is a very strong contributing factor to what reinforces your habits. The people you hang around, your routines, your triggers, your defaults, they can all be linked to your environment. Willpower alone can't compete with what you're surrounded by every day. Also, people quit too early. Impatience is a big contributing factor. Sometimes it could take months, even years, for you to get to where you want to be, for your goals to emerge into the outcome you've always wanted. Don't let that deter you, because if you put the hard yards in, you will achieve what you put your mind to. And also with impatience, progress often looks like repetition without reward. On and on and on until one day everything changes. That was the day you're waiting for. Here are some of the truths about achieving your goals. Falling back doesn't mean you failed, because here's the thing, you can wake up and choose to be a completely different person than who you were yesterday. And that's a beautiful thing about life, isn't it? You are not cemented to be the person you were the day before. If you didn't hit the habits you wanted to hit yesterday, Just do them tomorrow. Didn't hit them today, just do them tomorrow. It's okay. One day is not going to hurt you, 2 days isn't going to hurt you. It's what you do over time that matters. Don't get stuck in the all or nothing mindset, please. Falling backwards doesn't mean you're not disciplined. Things happen in life. You're never going to have a solid 14 days where something isn't going to show up. That's going to take you away or cause you to see and interrupt the habits you're trying to form. Also, sometimes falling backwards might mean you still don't have enough clarity. Your environment might be a contributing factor again. Your identity hasn't caught up to where you are yet. And that's the cool thing about life is it's a game. You can choose, you can change. It's a challenge. Look out where you've fallen off. See what wasn't working. Pivot. Life's about pivoting. Once you understand all these things, you can stop expecting comfort. Understand that actions is what's going to get you your end goal. Consistency is hard, but it's what you need. And with that, I'm going to love you all and leave you all. Bye.